What's up? I'm Allie, and welcome back to my channel. Did I mean to record this a month ago? Yes. Did it happen? No! This is a little bit of my mid-year check-in, a mix of like the mid-year book freak-out tag. I was gonna do a tag, but you'll see why I don't later. Also gonna tier rank everything that I've read so far this year, depending on if I would recommend them or not. So I got some stats here. I got some things to go over. So if you're interested in all the things that I read from January to the beginning of July, here we go. All right, let's talk about some of these monthly stats here. Hang on. I'm gonna hide myself for a second while I talk about my stats. This is my monthly breakdown. As we can tell, 7 books tends to kind of be my average around there. And January is always a really good reading month for me. March tends to be a really good reading month for me. And July, October, and December. Is that like every other month almost? Is that what it is? I just like binge read one month and then I have to take the next month to like recoup. Most books so far have been in April with 11 books. And then the most hours, looks like March, 77 hours. But January, just like that just seems like so much. So many pages and so many hours, only being 9 books. I was really, really on top of that shit, you know? For a total of 49 books, which is great because I always set my goal to about 50 books a year. This is the first year I've set my goal to 100 books in a year. So we're right on track. For total pages, 6,819 and 340 hours in audiobook listening. And here is a breakdown of what I read each month. These are all the titles that I read. April was a lot of like creepy, mystical, fairy type stuff as well. Green Teeth, The Butcher of the Forest, The Darkest Part of the Forest. A lot of Holly Black. Really got on a Holly Black kick this year. Holly Black, Darkest Part of the Forest. Tiff, whatever. Valiant, Ironside, Stolen Air, Prisoner's Throne, all things that I read, you know, just trying to catch up. A few rereads on this list just to pull them out would be Unkindness of Magicians was a reread. Actually, was that the only reread for the beginning of the year, which is, Throne of Glass. That's kind of crazy to me because I was a reread in full last year. There are some other things we have to address. Basically, my biggest disappointments were things that I had to DNF this year, which leads me to these guys. Mail. I started it, realized not even a quarter of the way through like what was happening, and I was very uncomfortable with the way that this book had been set up and presented. I had multiple problems with it. One, the fact that she is like hunting down this pen pal that she had in school, who she like might be interested in, but while also dating like her new neighbor. But then we have the new neighbor sketchy in their own sense for reasons. I don't want to give it away. And so I ended up DNFing because I felt just really uncomfortable with a lot of it. And I looked at some reviews and some people were saying the way things end up progressing also was not great. So there's that. Wake Up and Open Your Eyes was a great disappointment, but this is one of the first books that I have felt a great anxiety upon reading. The first chapter of this is very intense and I just couldn't, which is crazy because normally I love this type of stuff. It's the psychological horror. There's gore involved, and gore doesn't tend to bother me, but I think it was just the way that this was presented, basically like a brainwashing in a political sense has like taken over people's families and they become someone you no longer recognize, but it actually is like manifested in a different way. It was a little too much, I think. So I ended up DNFing this. It was really sad because it was one of my most anticipated releases of the year. And then the Thursday Murder Club was actually one. I own a lot of this series and have sought out this series. I've heard good things about it. I've been really enjoying cozy mysteries, but this one just wasn't for me. Felt like I just was not getting what I expected out of it, and it just bored me. So I ended up DNFing that. On the other hand, we have some of the best books. The sequels, Adrift in Currents, Clean and Clear by Shauna McGuire. This is like the 8th or 9th in this series. They're all novellas. They're not necessarily all connected, but they do all take place like within the same world. This one in particular, I really, really enjoyed. It's probably one of my favorites of the series to date. It's about a adopted girl, and she ends up in a drowned world, and it was just so wholesome. Best read overall, I feel like, was probably A Little Life. This one just really hit me in the feels. Just really got me in the feels, and I feel like it gets everyone. I really didn't know what to expect out of this. A lot of people have said that it's trauma porn in a way, but I do think that this also deals with some really heavy topics, and honestly, kind of a beautiful way, but also kind of straightforward. So I was a little shocked, because I'm normally the first one to call out if something feels like trauma porn. And I just didn't feel that way. I felt like this was pretty realistic in the long run. And then best series overall, clearly since I binged it, Dungeon Crawler Carl. I've been obsessed. I was going to show you guys a quick, like, I have my spreadsheet, and because one of the questions was like just genres you've been loving. It's definitely been fantasy. I've been on a fantasy kick again. Fantasy and horror have just like really taken over. Fantasy has always been one of my most read genres, but I feel like I've really sought out more higher fantasy this year than before. Horror, again, is big, but sci-fi surprised me, because while I like fantasy, I don't tend to like sci-fi. So this really surprised me. Now, this is a little skewed because this is showing July's data as well, but I think it's pretty clear, like, they're the winners here. These are the releases coming out in the second half of the year. So, World's Greatest Detective and Her Just Okay Assistant. This just sounds fun. Like I said, I've really been liking cozy, like, mysteries. Same with The Game is Murder, although I've been seeing, like, bad reviews coming in on this. So now I'm a little curious. As you can tell, retro was kind of like, I kind of like that general feel. Anyway, Hot Wax, ML Rio, one of my favorite authors, coming out with a new book. I'm so excited. Too old for this, about a female retired serial killer? Hell fucking yeah, that's my stuff. Hecate? I'm gonna mispronounce that. I pre-ordered this and I'm so excited for it. The Dead Husband Cookbook. The title intrigues me. This one is kind of like a cover pick. Mayra. Look at that cover. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Another one. 8,114. Wow, that was kind of hard to get out. Black Flame. You Were Meant to Be Human. Still very much on my horror shit. I weirdly haven't been reading as much, but going into the second half of the year. Wow, I'm really struggling with speaking today. That's spooky season, baby. So I know I'm going to be reading much more horror as the year goes on. The Maiden and Her Monster is another one that I just thought sounded really, really good. So those are kind of new releases on my radar. One of the things that I did do at the beginning of the year is I made a 25 and 25. And it was the first year where I didn't just like pick books just to pick them. I picked books that I mostly owned, that had been on my shelves, that I wanted to read. I picked books with purpose, books that I like had plans in some way to incorporate at some point, whether that was a buddy read or a video or something. So the progress of that has actually been, I think, so good. As you can see, I'm 52% done, which I think is so good. And I have plans for so many other things here. Other ones here are Krampus. I plan on reading in December, so hopefully this will end up being the last one on the list. And the only one is this one, The Thursday Murder Club, which I have since replaced. I've just left this here for now, but you'll see when we do a end of the year wrap up, but I will have replaced it with. Yeah, I feel like I'm doing so good. It turns out when you make a TBR, a yearly TBR with like intentions and purpose, it like works out in the long run. Isn't that crazy? We're gonna tier rank, and I feel like this is where the majority of this content is going to be. As you can see, the categories are Everyone Go Read It Now, Loved but Would Not Recommend, Enjoyable but Forgettable, Could Have Gone Without Reading, and Throw It Away. Ship of Magic, and then I will also go ahead and put the rest of the series into place. This is an interesting one. This was my first Robin Hobb, which is pretty high fantasy, slow paced. In my opinion, there was a lot of meandering. It's crafted so well. Political aspects of this, the storytelling of this, the characters are some of the best characters I feel like that have ever been written. There are times when you despise a character, but you completely understand their motives. You're like, okay, I get it, but like, I still hate you. There are times where you hate a character and you go to loving them by the end of the series. And there's a lot of political issues, a lot of social issues. There's a lot happening. There's serpents and dragons and magic and pirates, and I'm buddy reading this. And I really enjoyed buddy reading it a lot with a group of friends. There was like 5 or 6 of us reading this at the same time. And that was really fun because then I got to show off how good I am at predicting things, whether I want to or not. I would honestly say this is something that I really enjoyed, but I don't think this series is going to be for everyone. High fantasy is an acquired taste to some degree. You either like it or you don't, and I do not think that this would be everyone's cup of tea, even though I think that they are brilliant. And currents, clean and clear. Honestly, I think that there is a book in this series for everyone. I think they're so well written, and there's going to be some that you get and some that you don't, but I just genuinely think that there is something within the series for everyone, and you don't necessarily have to read them in order. So I guess for that one, it's more of the series, but I did really enjoy this book. 20th anniversary screening. This is one of the books that I read for the Tiny Terrors book club, which is a horror novella book club that I host in my Discord. This one was fun. Movie screening ended up with a really dark history because a bunch of people died essentially at the screening of this movie. Follow a guy who decides he's going to have an anniversary screening of this movie, and everyone's like, you can't do that, like it's cursed, there's deaths involved, you're making money off of deaths, and there's like a plot twist in it and whatnot. And honestly, it was fine. I think most of us were like, cool, whatever, but I think we all could have gone without reading it, really. Phantasma. I was like, I've been seeing so much about this. This is a dark fantasy romance. Romance-specific books aren't always my jam. I like fantasy that has romance, but I don't like romance that has fantasy, so to say. She finds out that her sister has gone essentially to do this kind of compete in these games based around like the devil was hosting these games or something. Obviously, very intertwined with like some sexy ghost being there. And I'm gonna be honest, I could have probably gone my whole life without reading this. I reached a point where I was like, I just want it to be over. It would have been so interesting, especially because there's like a competition aspect and there's like trials to go through, which I love. That was like one of the things that made me want to pick it up. But they were so poorly done and rushed, I feel like. We didn't even get that aspect. Like, we were so worried about getting fucked that we really didn't compete. The trials were just so lackluster enough. So clearly, just based on this title alone, it's going to be an interesting pick. It's also by Chuck Palahniuk. I try to read one Chuck Palahniuk a year. I have quite a collection of his. He is definitely an interesting taste. He is one of the most fucked up writers out there, I feel like. A woman who, she's a porn star and she wants to become famous by sleeping with the most men within like 24 hours, which at this point, you know, has happened within the last year in reality. This book is older. Life imitates art or whatever. So we follow multiple characters who may or may not have ties to this porn star, and it's kind of them talking about the experience, but like while they're waiting and how they know each other, and there's some really weird shit going on kind of deal. I enjoyed this for the most part. It's not my favorite Chuck Palahniuk, but there's just something about his writing that I think is so brilliant. Such a fascinating writer. He writes about a lot of really dark topics that are very satirical to our society. This one, of course, is around sex work, our obsession with celebrities, idolize women in a way, and make them into sex toys no matter what. Anyway, I enjoy, but would definitely not recommend to everybody. Honestly, I don't know if I could think of anyone off the top of my head who I would recommend this to. Censor! This was one of my first graphic novels of the year. And this was my first Jinju Itu. I always mispronounce this. And it doesn't seem to matter how many, like my mouth, I don't understand. I'm looking at where I rated this, and I feel like I was being really generous at the time, because like, I'm thinking about it now, and I'm not feeling particularly fond of it. The story where like there's hair on this mountain, and it like changes the people that live there. We follow a character who like time travels or something by accident through his hair. Then there's like this cult thing happening. And honestly, there was just a lot going on. I could have gone without reading it. Maybe throw it away. I feel like there's so many other better things to read than that. The Full Moon Coffee Shop! I read this alongside two of my friends. We thought this sounded really cute. Essentially, a woman down on her luck, and the Full Moon Coffee Shop appears for those who are kind of down on their luck and just knows the perfect drink to give them, or, you know, the perfect advice. I want to know what my drink will be. What do I need? What's the perfect drink for me? Also, big talking cats? Hell yeah. But I will say, at the end of the day, plot for me was a little lacking. It wasn't anything I was overly interested in. It's definitely a cozy read, self-discovery a little bit. I wouldn't say it's necessarily forgettable because the premise is pretty unique to me. I don't think it's a book that I think about enough to be like, oh yeah, I read this and let me recommend this to you. I do think my friends really enjoyed it much more than I did, but to me it was kind of whatever. All right, another Tiny Terrors pick here is Rest Stop by Nat Cassidy. I picked this one in hopes that it wouldn't be a dud because this is a pretty well-known author, pretty interesting read, horror novella. I think delivers. It's creepy. It's action-packed. It's probably more of a thriller than anything. We had a really great discussion around the things that happen. It's a character who like stops at a rest stop and then gets locked in the bathroom, and then like things start raining out of the ceiling in the bathroom. They're locked in there and like something weird's going on clearly. Personally, really liked this. The group did too for the most part. Okay, Moon of the Crested Snow. All right, this is gonna be a hot take, I feel like. It's been on my TBR for a while. I've heard really great things about it. I do want to say I feel like it is an important voice to read from because it is from the voice of First Nations. The idea of this book is interesting, but it goes about it in the wrong way. I thought the writing was interesting. I did enjoy learning about the ways of life that this character goes through. But the overall way that this story goes down is so boring. It's an apocalyptic story where we know it's an apocalyptic story going into it. It's part of the synopsis. The problem is we don't realize it's an apocalypse until like 70% through the book. I just was bored out of my mind. I just couldn't wait for it to be over. And I don't want to rate something higher simply because it's important at the end of the day. That feels just ingenuous to me. If I could be honest, I wish I could like delete this from my memory. Normally apocalyptic stuff is like my jam. Survival in the middle of nowhere in the snow is my jam, and this wasn't it, and I feel really bad, but it is what it is. Oh, little life. Oh, little life. But this book has definitely impacted me. I was a sobbing mess live for all of you to see. A group of friends. We're kind of from the point of view of a few of them. But we follow this group as they've like gotten older and they've grown together. Specifically, the traumatic things that happen, but mostly around one character, and it is a lot. Trigger warnings are pretty much like anything you can think of, and I do think that this is written in a way, it's not like trying to romanticize any of this in any way, shape, or form, and I did love seeing the way the characters had to handle the things happening around them, not just like to them, but to their friends, and how they had to handle the things that they were learning about their friends along the way. And I don't know, I think this is a very impactful book, and I know there's a lot of criticism around it. I would not recommend this. I wouldn't recommend anyone read it. Has it impacted my life? Yeah. Would I recommend you read it? No. I don't want you to go through that like I went through that. How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying. This is very much a silly, goofy book that I went in not knowing anything. Basically, as it has been transported into this magical world for as long as she can remember at this point. And she is supposed to be, you know, like the princess and all this stuff. But every time she dies, she restarts from the beginning. She can remember restarting every time. So this time she decides, fuck it, she's not gonna be like the damsel in distress, she's not gonna be the princess, and this time she's gonna be the Dark Lord and she's gonna fuck everything up. It's kind of about her attempts to get there, but then the stakes start to get raised as she gets further and further, and it's like, fuck, if you die now, like, that's a lot of fucking work to do. Honestly, I had a really fun time with this. Can you tell it's written by a man? Yeah, a little bit. Kind of want to put it and everyone go read it now. If you just want like a fun little read, I will be reading the sequel because I think it's already out. I thought it was a unique premise and it's just silly, goofy stuff. The Art of Horrible People. This was, I don't even know, like a collection of stories, horror stories. This is a Tiny Terrors pick. It sounded interesting. I thought it was going to be a bunch of cool stories about, you know, the terribleness of people in the world, but honestly there were some things in this that was just the authors just like random thoughts. Most of it was not good. There are like 7 pages that are just full of name drops. That's literally it, just a list of famous people. It's literally 7 pages. That is a list of famous people. I really wish I hadn't picked this for us to read, and I felt really bad after everyone read it because I was like so sorry to waste y'all's time with this book because this was not it. There's so many better books out there. There's so many or short story collections, anthologies, whatever. This just simply was not the move, I can tell you that much. So sorry to my Tiny Terrors people for that one. Green Teeth, one of my anticipated releases of the year. And Green Teeth, for those who don't know, is like a folklore mythology type creature that bit like a mermaid, but not really. They have really sharp teeth and they're green and they tend to live in like rivers and bogs and things like that. Follow a character who is a green teeth. And it's about her life in this lake, her beautiful, beautiful life. And then one day a woman gets tried as a witch in her lake and she is not happy about this. That is her lake. And so she ends up saving the poor woman. And the poor woman, of course, is terrified of her because she's a green teeth. And they end up trying to come up with a plan because they realize there's something sinister happening in the village nearby. And she's like, I don't want any more bodies in my lake. We gotta fix this. So they go on an adventure through like Fae and there's quests and whatnot. And this was just so much more than what I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting, but this was really fun, really lovable characters, a little bit of a found family thing going on, really enjoyable. I think the writing was brilliant, pacing was brilliant, all around good stuff. Go read it. Do I even need to like really rate Throne of Glass? I have loved a lot of Sarah J. Maas's work. Throne of Glass, the series, I still think is the better series of all her series. Honestly, you can go read it if you want. I recommend it. I think the series is really fun. You can definitely tell, you can like watch Sarah grow as a writer for this series as well, because the first one reads as very like YA, and then it gets more complicated as we go. And it's one of the first like fantasy series I feel like I really fell in love with years ago, so I kind of wanted to reread it and see if it lives up to it. The Butcher of the Forest. This was, I think this is a novella. It's quite short. One that I kind of just picked up based on vibes. And I'm so glad I did. What a freaking surprise. It's in this fantasy world where you don't go into the forest because it's like another world in there. It's very dangerous. Anyone who goes in does not come out. Like you lose your way and it's a whole different reality. And there's creatures in there that you can't even like comprehend. And she gets told by the Cutthroat King she has to go in there because his kids went in there. And she is the only one who has ever gone in and come back out alive. We have so many layers to this as well because we have like her story, but then we also have like the forest and it's full of creepy characters and magic. And I love this. Beautifully written. Fantastic. I would recommend anyone give this a try. It's small, but it packs quite a punch. Lady McBeth. Obviously, I love a Shakespeare retelling, but I think this one stands on its own. Like, if you hadn't read anything by Shakespeare, you definitely would be able to enjoy this. Clearly, from the point of view of Lady Macbeth, who has kind of been put into like an arranged marriage with Macbeth, and it's kind of her trying to avoid him. The witches are involved, and there's dragons, and I thought this was creepy in all the best ways, but also fun at times. I like the different elements that get sprinkled in. So I think this is good. I think just about anyone could enjoy it. Okay, The Unworthy. The very apocalyptic feeling. We're a little disoriented going into this because we're just thrown right into the main character's like point of view. And you have to pick up kind of what's going on based on her point of view, but we're locked into like a sanctuary, and you know that there are like different levels to this, It's mostly women, and there's like people are respected by like certain ranks and they get different privileges, but it's a little bit like a cult. And we follow this character who has like been ingrained into this, and we learn about the hierarchy of this and like what goes down. Unsettling the whole time. And then a newcomer comes and like really fucks things up. Thought this was a funky, creepy read, but I would definitely not recommend it to everybody. I also think some people would not necessarily vibe with the way that it's written. Like, it is quite confusing to read from. Mistair. This is like a collection of stories, but they all take place in the same town. Like, each story follows a different person within this town, and there is a little bit of a timeline. Pretty enjoyable. There is one story that really stands out to me in this that I loved, and I could have just read a whole book about it, but the rest of it overall was fine. Most of the stories, in my opinion, were pretty forgettable. Even after like listening to them, I would kind of be like, okay, what happened again? And who's this again? Okay, you're gonna have to bear with me here because we got a lot of these. I just put one on the board. It's Witch Hatilia. This is the fourth one. Whatever. I've read like 1 through 6. This is a manga, and it follows a young girl who accidentally does magic. Witches can be witches, basically. Like, you have to be born into it. So the fact that she's done this, but also she's done something terrible, and she's feeling very guilty about it, but now she has a reason. She's been taken under the wing of someone who is willing to teach her the ways, has seen her potential, and it's about her growth. It's about learning about the world as she's learning about it. It is about thinking outside of the box, having faith in yourself, but also with the people around you. I don't tend to like a lot of manga. I'm very picky. And the fact that this one has just really captured my heart, I feel like says something. Anyone could enjoy these, and of pretty much any age as well. Holly Black. Became re-obsessed with Holly Black this year. We have The Darkest Part of the Forest. I actually started this last year and finally was like, I think I'm in the mood to pick that back up, and I'm glad I did. I don't know why I put it off. This one feels different because we are following humans' interaction and have known about fairy for a very long time, and like they just grow up knowing about it. We get to see as there's like a sleeping prince in the woods who is clearly fae. And then one day he's not there anymore. He's awake somewhere, and we gotta go find him. And I thought this was really fun. I am going to put this one up here and everyone go read it because I do think it is a good one of this world. And I think this one is worth reading. It doesn't have anything to do with like the Cruel Prince kind of deal. Tithe. I've heard such good things about these, and they are an older series, so I wasn't too sure what to really expect of them. This one is about a girl who finds out that she is a fairy after living in the human world, and is like, what the hell? And after encountering a fairy herself, it's where they steal a baby and replace it with a fae. She is that. She was replaced. Human her was replaced with fae her. Now human her lives in fae, and like she becomes obsessed with like this idea of finding human her. Series in particular, though, I would not recommend to everybody. I think the first one is fun. I don't think it's anything really like The Cruel Prince. It definitely deals a lot with like a dysfunctional family as well. Emotionally muted main character. After that, I thought you had to read Valiant. Turns out this takes place in the same world, and there's a little overlap in characters, but this does not follow the story from the first one. And this one, I think, would be the most off-putting anyone trying to read this series, because this is a girl who doesn't really go to fae. It's more of she runs away, she's like homeless. There's some really dark things going on, but she gets wrapped up in the fae, the exile fae that live within like New York City. And it's pretty dark. This one I think is like the darkest one of all. It deals with some really dark topics. And so this one I definitely would not recommend lightly to people. Ironside does follow. It picks up where the first book kind of ends, and then we get a little bit of a mixture of the characters from Valiant. As you can tell, this series overall is a little bit confusing, I would say, and Ironside to me is nice to wrap things up from the first one. I think it's just one of those ones where it's like, I probably could have gone a little bit without reading it. Honestly, you know what? I might put this one specifically into enjoyable but forgettable. I think the standout was Valiant, and that's because it was just so much darker than like what I was expecting. To Stolen Air and Prisoner's Throne, while we're at it, these ones are connected to the Cruel Prince series. These take place like 10 years after the events of Cruel Prince, and Oak has grown up. He's getting ready for the throne and whatnot. I actually don't really follow Oak in the Stolen Heir. We follow a different character, and it is a character from the Cruel Prince series. And I don't wanna like give anything away necessarily if you haven't read the series, but it is a character from that who has grown up beside Oak and kind of rejects the way of the Fae, but Oak seeks her out for mission. And neither of them is quite fully honest with each other about their intentions along the way, so there's a lot that goes wrong. And then, of course, we have the sequel, which deals with the aftermath of what has happened in the Stolen Heir. I will say, though, we developed these characters in the Stolen Heir, and then there is one particular character who feels like they have a whole personality shift within the Prisoner's Throne. War scene that happens in the Prisoner's Throne that I just did not feel very impressed with overall. It kind of just felt kind of thrown together. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that you need to read these within the Cruel Prince world. I love them. I will eat up any fairy things that Holly Black wants to give me. If Holly Black wants to keep popping out things, go for it. I'll read them all. I'll enjoy them all. I don't think you need to read this. Bonding? Oh, Jesus. Oh, where is it? Where is it? When you can have a beautiful graphic novel, and it's what I thought was gonna be a love story, and it turns out to not be at all. It was bad. I don't even remember, because like nothing makes any fucking sense in this. It's just bad. I don't even remember. I went on a whole rant because I read this on stream, and I went on a whole like 30-minute rant about how bad this was. There's the premise doesn't make any sense. It's like an apocalyptic world, and everyone has like this weird slug attached to them, and they're going to like this great big thing. There's like religious things involved. It just was bad. Honestly, if I can tell you not to read anything, it will be this. The rest of them, whatever. Read it if you want. If it sounds interesting to you. That one, just avoid it. Butcher and Blackbird. This is really popular, and a lot of people have recommended this to me because I do like a serial killer romance. Two serial killers who essentially we start out with, they run into each other trying to kill the same person, and then they make bets with each other. Like once a year, we're gonna get together and we're gonna like kill someone, basically. Honestly, I had a really fun time with this. I thought the plot was a good balance between like the smuttiness. Clearly, there is instant attraction, but there isn't necessarily instant love. Thank goodness. I think that is a great flaw of a lot of smut. I enjoyed this. I will say, listening to this in an audiobook in my work vehicle while I'm like at a stoplight, windows down, and listening as an erotic scene plays was truly something. Or when a murder scene was playing, because this is gory. I don't know if I'm going to continue the series. There's some possessiveness that I don't tend to like in romance that happens, but you know, alpha male shit and whatnot. But I thought it was interesting, it was unique. If that's your jam, go for it, but this isn't something that I would just recommend to anybody. Waif. This was a Tiny Terrors pick. Follow a woman in an unhappy marriage, and her husband decides to like get all of this stuff done. Greatly misunderstands her unhappiness, and then things just go to hell. This was a really interesting story. I definitely would not recommend this to people. For things about society, I think it drops the ball a little bit at the end because things get really fucking weird at some point. Because this is all like under like a weird surgeon who is like definitely not certified. Oh no. Okay, great big beautiful life. I tend to love Emily Henry. I think Emily Henry has a really great way of writing characters that feel very relatable and very real. This one is about two writers for a job about writing about this. It was this very like popular but controversial public figure who came from like a lot of money back in the day, but who has like disappeared for years. And now she wants to tell her story, but both of them want the job and they're both kind of up for it. So they're in a little bit of a competition with each other. That means they have to stay in town close to each other and keep running into each other, but that they are essentially competition. And she's very like bubbly, hyper kind of personality. And he is very much like quiet, very introverted type character. So we have very different personalities here. One, it felt like we were trying to be a little bit like the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but like not quite. And the main character does not feel like the main character of this book. I feel like it would have benefited so much more from making Hidden Starlet into the main character and just focused on that story. Because that story was so much more interesting, which is like, you know, part of it overshadows the main storyline so much. I think this is a really forgettable story. I honestly keep forgetting that I read it in general. Definitely her weakest story to date for me. House on Abigail Lane, a tiny terrors pick. It's pretty safe to say that if it's horror, I'm not going to recommend it lightly. But even if you aren't necessarily a horror reader, you could enjoy this story. Plot of land, essentially, weird things happen. It follows. It's like someone has put together research over years showing you like what all the things that have happened here. And so we're kind of following, it's almost like a blog kind of deal of all the different information that has come together when these weird events started happening, where people just kind of like disappear and everyone kind of has a different story about what actually happened. Some people are like, you know, one moment they were there and the next moment they were just gone. And then there's some where it's like someone else saw like a whole other universe open up. Other times it's like something else entered our world. Like, is there a tear in the universe here? A lot of questions, and it's up to you a little bit to decide like what you want to believe. But we had a really fun time discussing this, and I think just about everyone liked it to some degree. I think this writer is a brilliant writer overall. And if you're looking for something weird and funky but isn't overly scary, I got another manga. This one, I only read the first one. It's A Cat from Our World and the Forgotten Witch. I do plan on continuing this. Basically, you know, this witch she's kind of an outcast amongst town, and she gets a familiar, and the familiar that appears is a cat from our world, but he's massive. And that's kind of it. I would say it's very enjoyable, but it's very forgettable. I haven't like rushed to pick up the second one. It's fun if you want a cute, cozy read. This one was a read for me, and I would recommend this to most people. I love it. I love Kat Howard. I think Kat Howard is an amazing writer. Modern day magicians who exist. They're born with power. It's about them like having these houses and how they distribute power and like the governing system. But we follow multiple characters as basically, the year has come where they need to hold a competition to figure out who is going to be in charge of the magical world, who is going to dictate the laws, and like who has power and who doesn't. And on top of that, we have a character who like no one knows where she came from, but she might be the most powerful of them all. And everyone's like, what the hell? And there's a lot of drama and tea among families happening in the background. And it's a really, really fun read. I feel like it's unique. However, I read the sequel, which came out very many years after An Unkindness of Magicians, which is why I reread it, because I was like, I don't quite remember what's what. And I think I could have gone without reading the sequel. I want to be so honest. It really felt unnecessary. There are some crazy things that happen in this that feel like they almost happen just for like shock value to some degree. You kind of skip out on the sequel. I really just don't think it was necessary whatsoever. That time I got drunk and saved a demon. I just wanted something lighthearted. I wanted some romance, but I've been in such a fantasy mood, and I was like, whatever. This seems fun. I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would. Honestly, it kind of had similar vibes along the lines of How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying, and that like we have a character who ends up meeting with like an enemy, then they have to like go on this expedition, enter a trial kind of deal. That's what's happening. She's like, I'm gonna go do this trial kind of deal because I'm gonna save my family, because what the hell is this nonsense? And they've kind of been lied to like their whole life about like what's what. I thought it was fun. I honestly was caught up in more of the plot than I probably was the romance. We're very lustful right off the bat, and like I get insta lust attraction, whatever, but it's a little heavy, I feel like, to the point where I was like, this is a little much. I honestly, though, I feel like it's not anything that necessarily might stick out. Soul Grows Heavy. I don't know what the hell I expected from this, because Cassandra Khaw is such a polarized like author, and I have loved their work. Other people hate their work. And this one in particular is about basically a mermaid and a plague doctor. This is a dark fantasy world, and it is a little confusing to follow at first, the way that this is narrated. She is not really a mermaid. She is something we can't quite comprehend, and she has been stolen from the ocean to some degree, and she's used as a prize. And then this world is going to hell. And she travels with the plague doctor at this point. And they come across a group of children, and then there's a whole lot of weird shit going on. There's operations, there's killings and slaughterings, there's soul renderings and whatnot. But at the heart of this this is kind of a romance. And the way that this is told is so good. Outward necessarily gestures all the time. It's in like knowing someone deep down, understand them and things that they would want, but also acceptance of one another. And even though like it's not necessarily outright said, like, you understand their connection. And I thought it was brilliant to be told in such a short span. I read this for Tiny Terrors, and I think most of us enjoyed this to some degree. So honestly, I say give it a try. It's a little fucked up, but in like a fun way, I guess. Chris told me to read this 3 years ago, and I finally read it. The Minotaur takes a cigarette break. I don't know what I was expecting from this, but it is not at all what I got. Follow M The Minotaur. It's the Minotaur from mythology. He's been alive for forever, but it's like modern day. It's about him just like trying to fit into society and like live his life. He's like, you know, I used to do all these crazy things, but I'm trying to be a better me. And you feel so bad for him at times. How the characters around him treat him. And at times you're like, oh, God, he's like clearly being mistreated. But other times you're like, God, everyone is so understanding around him. Then there are moments where you're like, what the fuck, M? Are you? What is going on? And there is like a scene in this that may be uncomfortable for reasons. It's not bad. It's just the way that it's described is like gross to me. I recommend this. It's not forgettable. I had a good time with it. I'm glad that I read it. I won't be reading this. There was a sequel that came out many years after. So I do think this is one that like I enjoy, but I definitely would not recommend this to people lightly. I would have to know your taste. Unless you want to be like, I like weird shit and I'm quirky, maybe. Go for it. Before the coffee gets cold. Basically, a time-traveling coffee shop. There is a very heartbreaking story that happens within this. I wouldn't recommend it. I'm gonna be so honest. I feel like I could have gone without reading this. Cried. It's not that it didn't impact me. I don't know. I just didn't really feel like I fully grasped the hype of it. And it just didn't deliver on what I thought I was getting at the end of the day. And even the things that I did get, I was like, I didn't really want to read about this. And I just kept getting really fucking confused by time travel fucks me up. And I tend to not read anything with time travel because I hate it. My brain thinks about it too hard. Don't think I'm going to continue the series, but we'll see. We are missing one thing in particular. And of course, it was the first thing that I read. And it is a series, so all of these are going into one category. That's Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's Dungeon Crawler Carl, everybody. I read this at the beginning of the year, and it has become my whole fucking personality. I love Carl. If you would have told me I would have loved Carl from book one, I would have told you, no, I fucking wouldn't. Late 20s, he lives with his girlfriend and her award-winning Persian cat, except for him and his girlfriend have just broken up because he found out that she went on vacation with her ex-boyfriend. She's actually like not that great. So he's stuck at home now in their apartment with the award-winning Persian cat, Princess Donut. And it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. He goes to open the window to smoke and Donut gets out and he's like, oh, it's winter time. So he goes outside to get the cat. And as he's trying to get Princess Donut out of a tree, the whole world collapses around him and anyone who was in a building died. A voice comes up like out of nowhere and is like, oh, welcome to the end of the world. A stairwell is going to open up. If you want to, you can either live on Earth as it is, or you can enter the stairwell and enter the dungeon. Here's the thing. Carl, because he went outside to get the cat quickly, he thought, he's just in a little leather jacket, his boxers, and his girlfriend's pink Crocs that don't fit. He's like, I ain't got nowhere to go. It's cold out here. So him and Donut enter the dungeon, and that's where it all begins. That's where we get new achievement right off the bat. Interesting because it has video game elements. It's got D&D elements. You get to choose like your race and whatnot, and it's all to figure out who's going to make it to the end. But you find out that there's a lot of political things going on with the universe, and there's like talk shows. It's hilarious. I keep talking about how funny it is, and then other people read it and they're like, Allie, it's also kind of fucked up. So I probably should mention the fact that it's also a little fucked up, and dark humor apparently is just my jam. It's perfect. It's perfect. You like book one, but then you get hooked by book two, and then you can't stop. Even the people who told me they weren't sure about the first one have binged the rest of the series and been like, oh my God, I can't stop. I love Carl. I love Donut. I quote so many things from this book. These characters, you think you think that Matt isn't going to do a good job with these characters at the beginning because you're like, what a weird world this is, and like this is a throwaway character. And then you come to find out that they go through all this character growth throughout the series. And it's been a while since I've seen an author who plants something in book 1 that actually comes in to play in book 6. Sometimes, like, there's some things that are quite obvious they're going to come into play later, but then there's other things that you're not even thinking about. Brilliant. I have cried. I have laughed. I've screamed. I love this series. I will be rereading it again this year. But yeah, there's a reason I didn't do a full, like, mid-year book freak out tag. You know, the questions are like best book of the year, best sequel, book that made you cry, you know, new favorites, things like that. For me, it's just Carl. It's just Carl. It's best series. Laugh out loud funny. Made me cry. Best sequel. Big new author. Biggest surprise. I didn't think I was going to like this series. It's nothing sounds like it would appeal to me, but it does. Best characters and character growth. Best audio. Best world building. I could go on and on and on. Anyway, that's my love letter to Carl today. I tell Carl I love him almost every single day. It has become my religion. Anyway, this is your endorsement. If you haven't already, go read Dungeon Crawler Carl. The audiobooks are fantastic. They are somehow narrated by one person, which is insane to me if you listen to any of them, because they are some of the best audiobooks I've ever listened to, and they've kind of ruined audiobooks for me. Those were my stats. Let me know some of your favorites of the year so far, some of your least favorites of the year. Just let me know. How has your reading been going? It's been a while. Let's catch up, bestie. Let's go. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next one. Okay, bye!